We like to think the future is mostly predictable, but have you ever heard the term black swan? We all have to deal with some amount of uncertainty, whether we like it or not. But wouldn't it be nice to take advantage of, let's say, the next Bitcoin? Or to avoid a possible catastrophe? Our world is shaped by unpredictable, high-impact events known as black swans. Now, what if we could learn how to spot these surprises and better prepare for them? Well, you can, and it is not as hard as you might think. In his book, The Black Swan, author Nicholas Taleb describes how the lessons he learned about predicting the unpredictable led to his breakout success in the stock market. It's a fact that you can prepare yourself for a life full of unpredictable events, and if you want to learn how, watch this video until the end. What exactly is a black swan? It might sound like a rare bird, but in the world of economics and everyday life, it means so much more. A black swan event is something unexpected, a surprise that catches everyone off guard and has a huge impact. The idea comes from the time when people in Europe believed all swans were white because, well, that's all they'd ever seen. Then one day, black swans were discovered in Australia, shattering that belief. That view illustrated how easily we get comfortable with our assumptions until reality gives us a shock. So what makes an event a black swan? It has three key features. First, it's rare and unpredictable. It's the kind of thing that doesn't fit neatly into our everyday expectations. Think about the 2008 financial crisis. Hardly anyone saw it coming, yet it changed the world in ways we're still dealing with today. Second, when these events happen, their impact is massive. They shake up everything from individual lives to global economies. Third, once the dust settles, people try to explain these events as if they were predictable. We look back and say, "Oh, we should have seen that coming," when in reality, nobody did. Our tendency to rationalize surprises after they happen is part of the problem. We're wired to cling to patterns and stories that make sense, making us blind to possibilities that fall outside our narrow view. Black swans force us to face this limitation. They're a reminder that life is more complex than the simple narratives we create. And here's where it gets trickier. We're bad at predicting these events, but we tend to be overconfident in what we think we know. Nassim Nicholas Taleb points out that the more confident we are, the less prepared we become for surprises. Why does this matter though? Because understanding black swans can change how we approach the world. It can help us recognize that no matter how much we plan, there will always be uncertainties lurking just around the corner. Expecting the unexpected can help us prepare for the future. It's not about predicting every detail, it's about knowing that surprises are part of the game. But then, how do these black swans shape our lives in ways we often don't realize? Let's dig into what makes a black swan so unique. They aren't just rare. They're completely outside what we expect in our usual day-to-day. Think about it. In our normal lives, we tend to predict things based on past experiences. We trust patterns, rely on statistics, and listen to experts. And most of the time that works well. But when a black swan shows up, it throws all our expectations out the window. We already mentioned the 2008 financial crisis. Leading up to it, almost everyone in the financial world felt secure. Analysts had data, experts made predictions, and everything seemed under control until it wasn't. When the crisis hit, it was like a domino effect, spreading chaos not just in markets but in people's lives everywhere. This is what makes black swan events so powerful. They arrive without warning and their impact spreads far and wide, affecting things we never thought could be connected. Now, here's an interesting twist. After a black swan, people search for explanations. They dig through the past looking for clues they might have missed, trying to connect dots that weren't obvious before. It's as if, after the fact, we convince ourselves that it was somehow predictable. This reaction is a classic human trait. We like to feel in control, so we invent stories that make random events seem logical in hindsight. This is what is referred to as rationalized surprises. We turn unpredictable events into stories that fit our need for order. But black swans don't just shake up markets or big institutions. They can completely change how society operates. For example, consider the rise of the internet. No one saw it coming in its early days. It wasn't something experts could have mapped out. Yet when it did emerge, it changed everything. How we communicate, do business, learn, and even how we view privacy and security. Suddenly the world was different and entire industries had to adapt or risked fading away. These events aren't isolated incidents either. In fact, black swans have been occurring more frequently since the Industrial Revolution. The reason is that as our world becomes more interconnected and complex, it also becomes more prone to these massive surprises. And here's where it gets challenging. No amount of data, forecasting, or expert analysis can prepare us for every possible black swan. So what does this mean for us? It means that we need to be more aware of the limitations of our knowledge and the potential for the unexpected to reshape our world. Black swan events don't impact everyone in the same way. For some, they are life-changing shocks, while for others, they might not even leave a scratch. It all comes down to access to information and how prepared you are to handle surprises. Let's break this down with a simple scenario. Let's say you're placing a bet on a horse race. You've done your homework. Checked the horse's record, its build, and even the jockey's skill. It feels like a sure thing. Then the race starts and your horse refuses to move, just sits there on the track. Suddenly, you've lost everything. This kind of unexpected twist is a classic black swan moment. And while it blindsides you, it doesn't surprise everyone. The horse's owner knew something you didn't. Maybe they were aware the horse would refuse to run, and they bet against it, turning a tidy profit while you took the hit. This difference in impact shows that knowledge and awareness can make all the difference. Those who lack crucial information or fail to consider unknown factors are left exposed to the fallout of black swan events. And it's not just individuals who feel the effects. Sometimes entire societies get a wake-up call. When Copernicus put forward the idea that the Earth wasn't the center of the universe, it was like setting off a bombshell. It didn't just change science, it changed religions, cultures, and people's self-view. Black swans have the power to redefine our understanding of the world. They disrupt every aspect of life, from philosophy to politics. They force us to question long-held beliefs. The 2008 financial crisis hurt banks and investors. It also changed our view of financial systems, trust in markets, and government policies. People had to rethink their assumptions about what was safe and what wasn't. But these events can affect us at different levels. If you're prepared and have access to more information, you might weather the storm. If not, a single black swan can wipe out years of effort, savings, or progress. This unpredictable nature is why it's crucial to understand that what we don't know often matters more than what we do. This leads us now to the question, why do our natural tendencies and mental habits keep us from seeing these game-changing events until it's too late? The truth is, our minds love stories. We constantly create narratives that make sense of what we've seen in the past, and that gives us a false sense of predictability. This tendency is called the narrative fallacy. We take random events, connect the dots, and come up with stories that seem perfectly logical. It's comforting, right? The problem is, this kind of thinking doesn't prepare us for what's actually out there. One classic example of this fallacy is the turkey problem. Portrait a turkey living on a farm. Day after day, it's fed by the farmer, given shelter, and treated well. From the turkey's point of view, life seems predictable. Everything it knows tells it that tomorrow will be just as good as today. Then, Thanksgiving comes around and we all know what happens next. This is what happens when we rely too much on past patterns to predict the future. We fall into the trap of thinking we know what's coming based on what has already happened. And it's not just about making sense of the past. We also have a habit of searching for information that supports what we already believe. This is called confirmation bias. When we have a viewpoint, whether it's about politics, climate change, or anything else, we tend to ignore or downplay evidence that challenges it. If we come across something that doesn't fit our narrative, we brush it aside instead of digging deeper. So when a black swan does show up, it catches us off guard because we weren't paying attention to anything that didn't align with our story. Taleb explains that these cognitive biases are deeply ingrained in our nature. Our brains are wired to make quick decisions and simplify the world around us. It helped our ancestors survive in the wild, but in today's complex world, this approach often leaves us blindsided. We underestimate the impact of randomness and overestimate our ability to control events. And to top it off, we often trust experts who claim to have the answers, only to find that they too are operating within the same narrow view. So, how do we deal with these mental traps? By recognizing that they exist and reminding ourselves that what we don't know is often far more important than what we do. Our need to fit everything into neat, tidy explanations is a double-edged sword. It helps us understand the world, but it also limits our awareness of the unexpected. Our world is filled with complex systems where small changes can create huge, unpredictable outcomes. This is what is referred to as the dynamical system. Multiple inputs interact constantly. It's nearly impossible to predict where things will lead. Take the famous butterfly effect, for example. A tiny change, like a butterfly flapping its wings, could, in theory, set off a chain of events. It might lead to a tornado halfway around the world weeks later. Now, if that's how the world really works, how can we expect to accurately predict the stock market, political events, or even our personal lives? We simply can't. And that's a hard pill to swallow because it means that even our best predictions can be wildly off the mark. Then there's the issue of scalable versus non-scalable information. Some things in life have clear limits like body weight or height. We know there's a range where these numbers will fall, and that helps us make predictions. But in areas like wealth distribution or stock market gains, there's no set boundary. Someone could accumulate billions, completely skewing the average. This is what Taleb means when he says we can't use the same rules for everything. Trying to predict events in areas with no limits, or in what he calls extremistan, is a gamble no matter how much information you have. And let's not forget about how even experts get it wrong. They often use models based on historical data, assuming the future will look somewhat like the past. They gather past trends, current statistics, and try to form a neat little forecast. The problem is that these models can't account for the truly random events that change everything. They miss out on the unknown unknowns, those rare, high-impact surprises that no amount of data crunching could have predicted. So, what can we do? The first step is to accept that some things just aren't predictable, no matter how much we wish they were. Instead of focusing all our energy on guessing the future, We need to prepare for a range of possibilities. We need to understand that randomness is part of life, and trying to fit it into a neat box is not going to work. So how do we shift our mindset and strategies to better navigate a world full of surprises? How do we deal with the unpredictability of black swans? Well, instead of wasting energy trying to predict every possible outcome, we need to shift our focus to preparation. Nassim Taleb suggests that embracing our ignorance is actually the smartest move. This means acknowledging that we don't know everything and that surprises are part of life. Once we accept this, we can start preparing ourselves to handle whatever comes our way. One strategy you can apply is the barbell strategy. It's a way to balance safety and risk in a smart way. Think of it like this. On one end, you place most of your resources in extremely safe investments, things that won't collapse if a black swan hits. On the other end, you make smaller, high-risk bets that could pay off big if the unexpected happens. This approach isn't about predicting what will go right. It's about protecting what you have while still leaving room for opportunities to arise. A split strategy between safety and risk minimizes losses. It also gives you a chance to benefit from positive surprises. Another important mindset shift is to open yourself up to positive black swans. We often hear about black swans in a negative light, like market crashes or natural disasters, but they can be just as life-changing in positive ways. Think of groundbreaking discoveries or unexpected opportunities. We should be more sociable and proactive in seeking out these positive encounters. A simple conversation or a new connection can sometimes lead to the most unexpected and rewarding paths. So saying yes to new experiences and staying curious can put you in the right place at the right time for a positive black swan. One should also focus on preparation rather than prediction. Since it's nearly impossible to foresee the next big event, we should spend our efforts getting ready for different scenarios. This is especially true when it comes to managing risks. If you're aware that certain areas, like finance or business, are more exposed to black swans, you can take steps to reduce your vulnerability. This doesn't mean playing it safe in every aspect of your life. It means being smart about where to take risks and how to protect yourself against worst-case outcomes. The key takeaway here is to stay flexible and open-minded. The world is unpredictable, and that's okay. By accepting this reality, we can stop chasing certainty and start building a life that's resilient in the face of the unexpected. What's your opinion? Do you think that knowing what you don't know can save you from making mistakes? Comment below and be sure to subscribe.